would appreciate. Okay. So the recording has started. We would ask that every person remain on mute unless they're actually speaking at the moment. That would keep down all the external sort of metallic sounds that you get otherwise. But welcome to all of you. This is really great to bring these three wonderful organizations together. So we have HomeFront and Mercer Street Friends and Task, the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. It sort of can't get better than that when you're looking for, people who do so much for their community. And we changed plans here to, hold on a minute. Okay. All right. Sorry, folks. So I had looked for an opening prayer that would be, particularly suited to the wonderful speakers that we have here today. And I'd like to share one of those prayers with you. It's called Prayer for Volunteers. See God's hand in service. Lord, when volunteers first sign up for their area of service, they are thrilled and ready to go. Once the service starts and the reality of the situation hits home, they can often feel overwhelmed. Serving others is rarely easy and requires the giving of oneself in a greater capacity. I want to pray for those volunteers who are feeling overwhelmed right now. And we ask God that you would give them the ability to see the spiritual picture of their service. Many times, if they can see your plan of the results of your work through them, they will become strengthened to serve with greater enthusiasm. Grant them your peace to carry on with all you have called them to do. Amen. I would like to give you some idea of the next program that's coming up. It will be in April, and it will feature Dr. Frank Newport, who is actually world famous for his work with the Gallup poll. He's a scientist himself, and he has been in the business of statistics and analysis and getting a feel for what people are thinking and feeling and doing or maybe about to do. And he has a particular concentration in religion. And so he's going to speak about religion in America today. So when we get the exact date of that, we will share it with all of you, but just keep your ears open for more good news. But today we have such a special program that we actually allotted extra time in order to give each of our three speakers serious time. So right now I'll turn it over to Nancy Mason, who's the person that had the bright idea, which it was, to have such a program and who has done all the work to make it possible. Thank you, Nancy.
Oh, you're welcome, Madeline. The Trenton Area Soup Kitchen currently serves an estimated 8,000 free meals a day to the Mercer County needy. Mercer Street Friends is the longest standing nonprofit organization in the county, established in 1958. HomeFront, on any given night, provides shelter to more than 500 people, 2/3 of whom are children. These are just some of the eye-opening, jaw-dropping facts I learned when preparing to introduce our guest speakers today. Behind these facts are three CEOs of the organizations responsible for helping Mercer County's most needy. How do they do it? How do they manage? We will hear how they manage in general, but specifically during the pandemic, and lastly, what does the future hold? Prior to becoming the executive director at Task, Joyce Campbell worked for Catholic Charities of Trenton for more than 20 years. She has a master's in social work from Rutgers, among other credentials. She's a board member of the Mercer Alliance and Homelessness and serves on various Mercer County Human Service related committees. She was recognized for her work by Congressman Rush Holt on the floor of the House of Representatives during his presentation of a resolution for the 100th anniversary of Catholic Charities USA in December 2010. In March of 2016, New Jersey Assemblywoman Valerie Venieri Huddle presented Joyce a resolution for Women's History Month, acknowledging her as a tireless anti-poverty advocate. The Princeton Mercer Regional Chamber of Commerce recognized Joyce as the Community Leader of the Year in December 2020. Joyce also serves as a field liaison and field placement specialist for Rutgers University Graduate School of Social Work and has guest lectured for several social work courses. Bernard Flynn, CEO of Mercer Street Friends, a full-time volunteer CEO since February 2020. Mercer Street Friends provides social services to families and individuals in need, is a backbone community school agency in the city of Trenton, helping to support the education of Trenton School District students, and serves Mercer County's food bank. Bernie was a state of New Jersey Deputy Attorney General from 1987 to 1993, serving as counsel for the Commissioner of Insurance. He also served as president and CEO of NJM Insurance Group from 2008 to 2018. In October in 2015, Mr. Flynn was named co-chair of Greater Trenton, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to advance economic development and revitalization projects of importance to New Jersey's capital city. He is also a founding board member of Choose New Jersey, an independent, privately funded and managed nonprofit corporation who markets the Garden State as premier location for domestic and international business looking to expand or relocate their operations. From 2012 to 2014, Mr. Flynn served as Choose New Jersey's chairman. Bernie has also been a member of Rutgers Business School's Institute for Ethical Leadership, Executive Business Cabinet. He has served as a trustee for Public Media New Jersey, Inc., and as a board member of the New Jersey Network Foundation He graduated from Rutgers University Law School in 1986 after obtaining his BS from Fordham University in 1982. In 2001, Mr. Flynn earned the Chartered Property Casualty Underwriter designation. Connie Mercer, founder and CEO of HomeFront. 30 years ago, Connie started HomeFront at her kitchen table, and today it has grown into one of Mercer County's premier organizations, helping the most vulnerable families in our community transform their lives by providing housing assistance, emergency shelter, food, clothing, educational opportunities for children and adults, job training and placement, just to name a few things that they do. Ms. Mercer began her social services career with the Canadian Mental Health Association, where she created a network of 19 group homes for disturbed youth. She then headed the Interstate Consortium on Residential Childcare, where she successfully drafted standards that formed the basis for licensing standards that were adopted in 27 states. In 1984, she was made Deputy Director of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, responsible for oversight of all state child welfare services with guardianship of 30,000 children. She received her undergraduate degree from the University of Chicago and a master's degree in clinical psychology from York University. I'm overwhelmed with the experience that these three individuals have, and Mercer County has to be the luckiest county in the state of New Jersey. That's all I can say. So I listed everyone alphabetically. So we're going to start with Joyce, and she's just going to give you a brief overview of Task and what it's been like and what it's going to be like in the future. So please hold your questions to the end of all three presentations, because I think some of the questions may overlap.
Is it possible to share my screen? If not, I can just do it this way. I don't know if I can do that. No? Okay.
You
That's all
should
right.
be able to do it, Joyce. Why don't you give it a try?
Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. There we go. All right. It just helps me a little bit, and it's a little more colorful than just listening to me to kind of put some pictures up too. So, it's really interesting when you talk
Joyce,
about.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I've now
Yes.
made you co-host. Why don't you try it again? We couldn't see it before.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, hang on one second. It doesn't work. Okay, is it there?
Unfortunately, it's not.
Okay, but we're gonna forget that because I'm not going to waste time with all that then. That's what happens with technology. But anyways, as I was going to say that, with Nancy's introduction about, where we've been, where we are, and where we've going, it could kind of be a better time for that reflection for task, as we are in our 40th, actually our 41st year. I never like saying we're celebrating it because I hate celebrating the fact that people are hungry and poor. So, but we are celebrating the strength of the community that provides help for the people that we serve. And I couldn't think of being on a panel with better folks than Connie and Bernie. And, you read all that stuff about us and I'm like, is that really all of us? Because, we don't seem all that important, but anyways, so for task, our mission is to feed the hungry in the Trenton area and also to provide services and programs to improve people's quality of life, increase their self-sufficiency. And, I think the thing that remains the same for us over the years are our guiding principles. We're no questions asked to get food. Come in the door, sit down, have a meal. Don't have to give us your name or anything. We really hold to that. We try to hold to, taking as little information as we can on people unless we need to for services that we're going to provide. We're all about dignity and respect. And I think we really try to stick to those principles and really see, as all organizations do, each individual. So we started 40 years ago serving meals at the United Methodist Church, first United Methodist Church in Trenton on South Broad Street. First year we served 40,000 meals. Total this summer we will hit 6 million meals. In a full circle sort of thing. First United Methodist Church is now Turning Point United Methodist Church, and Pastor Rupert Hall recently joined our board. And when we interviewed him and connected the fact that he was the pastor of the first place where task meal was served, I told him he could not refuse to serve on the board. So fittingly, on January 13th this year, which was the actual date 40 years ago, Pastor Hall was with us and ladled out the bowl of soup. So it really is full circle. And, a lot of times, we look back and think about where we've come, and we've come a long way. We now are at actually Turning Point United Methodist is our 33rd community meal site. We expanded through COVID. We are doing, and it's actually 8,000 meals a week. I know Nancy said a day, like a week, which is still a lot. We probably increased production a little more than 50%. It was higher at the beginning of COVID. We were getting a lot of requests. But the biggest addition we've taken on is providing meals to 10 senior low-income housing buildings in Trenton. We also have started a partnership with the Muslim Center of Greater Princeton. And we purchase the meals, they deliver them. We actually go over to the river to Morrisville, PA now, because we would have people walk over the bridge. Ewing, we have sites in Hightstown, Princeton, Yardville. We are really pretty much all over. And that's the 8,000 meals that we provide. And again, COVID really, it triggered changes for us. Our main dining room on Esher Street, where our other services are provided, everything went to grab and go like it did for a lot of other organizations. I'm sure Bernie and Connie will touch on how that changed our food service, and so every meal that we're making now is in a 3-part sealed tray. And right now, fortunately, at Esher Street, our dining room has been open since July. We have limited capacity. People can dine in or they can take their meals to go. And we are actually undergoing a kitchen renovation, which I thank anybody in the community who donated to Task over the last 2 years. Not only are we fortunate enough to have had support to increase the meals that we've provided that in the short-term crisis, but to also be able to renovate our kitchen without really having to take on any debt, which is a good place to be. So we're really excited about that. And so that's our meals. Let me just tell you a little bit about, we also in 1992, Task realized, as most of us do, that it's not just hunger. If somebody's hungry, they probably have a lot of other issues going on in their lives. And at that time, our adult education program started. We have grown in all of our services over the years. We have, now I have a staff of 4 in our case management, one of who is just doing IDs. This is something that a lot of folks don't think about or know about, that if you're homeless or even if you're not, or you've been in a transitional living situation, whatever, you lose your identification. It's not easy to get it back in New Jersey. We right now assist about 700 individuals a year with probably about 850 documents. And I can go on and on, as Connie knows about the ID issue. I've kind of taken that on as my as one. It's difficult to get. There's barriers that have been put up by DMV that we are working on as a community, but it's just something that often goes unnoticed or folks don't think about it. We also, we work with people to place them in housing, the variety of social services. We also have a patron services office. We have hygiene products, socks, hats, reading glasses, Band-Aids, you name it, we have it. We have a fax machine, phone folks can make calls on. We also take in mail for about 80 of our patrons who are either unsheltered or they're going from place to place, or they could be at a place where their mail is not secure, meaning that someone could take it and from them. So that's that component. We also, again, adult education, this has been a big change. We had done in-person tutoring one-on-one with volunteers for many years to help people get their high school equivalency or to help them read, or study for a driver's license, CDL test. That is right now is all virtual. It was a huge shift. We have a loaner laptop program. And right now we have about 28 students who are learning remotely. The silver lining of that is, though, that our tutoring program used to be 9 to 10:30 and 2 to 3:30, and making it difficult for patrons who had jobs and volunteers who worked during the week. So this has really provided an opportunity, to connect when it's convenient. And it has also taught a lot of our patrons about digital literacy, which if we thought there was a digital divide before, once COVID hit and said, oh, you can just do that online or go for a telehealth visit. That's not easy for the folks that we serve. But we have done digital literacy with folks. We do have a computer lab. And lastly, we have an arts program, which some of you may know about. Our walls are filled with paintings. We also do creative writing and music. And what we really find with those programs is, most of the folks that we serve have been through some sort of trauma in their life. And it's really a great expression for them in whichever medium they take. In fact, there's one woman, and we have some folks who are fairly chronically mentally ill. And one woman, she played the tambourine in the band, and asked her, what do you do? How do you get out of it? She says, I get out of it this way I don't yell or hit people. I just hit the tambourine. I mean, hey, if it helps that, then it helps that, one of my staff said, aren't you embarrassed to say that? I said, no. I said, I think it's a real life example of how that music session helps that person. And you just don't always think of it in that way. The one thing, I think we are really now in the going forward stage. I think, like everybody else, COVID forced us to look at how we were doing some things. I think some things we're doing better. We've learned, just like even being here today, what can we do virtually versus in person? We get better attendance at some things. Also really keeping an ear on what the needs of our patrons are. One of the things that we started to undertake before COVID hit was a culinary training program. And we did get a few students through. And right now, of course, it's stopped because of the kitchen renovation. But what we discovered in looking at the kitchen is our original building was built in 1991. There's like 3 things: pantries, rooms, tacked on the back, something tacked on the front. And then we did a beautiful new addition just 3 or 4 years ago. But when we looked at the full space we had, we weren't using it as efficiently and effectively as we could. And we actually carved out space for a teaching kitchen. So we're really excited. That's definitely in the future. Other future things we're looking at frozen meals, and being able to label them, get them out, give them to, HomeFront and Mercer Street friends in their pantries. Maybe you have seniors who maybe they don't need the meal today, but they're going to need it later. And so those are things that we're looking at doing. And I think that, we are poised to do that. I feel very, very proud of my staff. Nobody said, we can't do it. They said, how are we going to do it? And in fact, at one point, the first summer, in our addition, we are fortunate. We have a glass wall that faces Capital City Farm. And we put a little tent out there and a chair and a table on the other side of the glass. Our case manager sat inside, handed a cell phone to the patron outside, and then they were on a cell phone inside. They have sanitized the phone, but this way, at least they're able to see the person when they were talking to them. And I just think the length that some of our staff go to is pretty incredible. Moving into the future, we're actually at the point of going into another strategic plan. So we're really looking at what else is the need. Is there a place that, area where there's still need? Is there a service that's still needed? One of the things that's come up actually as a result of COVID is, everybody's looking for employees. We have Amazon on site maybe once a week. UPS has hired people to actually pick up people at task because they can get there easily to transport them. Solterra, which is our recycling company, was looking for drivers with CDLs. We happen to have 2 patrons who had CDLs but are out of work. We've actually had a lot of people hired who have not had a long work history, and that's where the concern comes in. Really looking at, do we need to have a longer term sort of coaching program to help people keep jobs, specifically those who have had trouble retaining a job. So that's an area for the future. Another area that you don't often think about that our patrons have told us they really need is showers and laundry. Particularly those who are unsheltered or perhaps not sheltered very stably. Both of those are resources that they need. We did have a shower van, used to come down on Esher Street maybe twice a week. But that church unfortunately had a fire in the garage and the shower van was destroyed. So something we're looking at, is there a way to provide that? So those are all things we're kind of looking forward to the future. One more thing, and then I'm going to I'll close up. The thing I think that, with task, that one thing that does set us aside a little bit is our board really has been committed to not using a lot of government funding. And a lot of people say, that's terrible, you don't get government funding. Well, no, our patrons do. And that's a large part of what we advocate for housing vouchers, for SNAP, formerly food stamps, that we do have some government funding, but a lot of it comes with a lot of strings. And, we are fortunate that only about 2% of our revenue comes from government, and we have about 65% from individuals. We are extremely blessed, is all I can say. We really are. We can do things to help people in a holistic manner sometimes because of that. I'm not saying that nobody else does, but it's just something. And actually, having come from Catholic Charities, where about 80% of the funds are from government, this was a big switch. But I just can't tell you how many wonderful, generous people are in the community that support our folks who, really for many of them, task is their family. They really don't have anybody else. And we love them all. I'm going to end there. I don't want to take too much time.
Well, thanks, Joyce. And I'm happy to hear that it's not 8,000 meals a day.
No. So is my kitchen staff.
Well, I'll turn the next speaker, we're doing this alphabetically, over to Bernie Flynn, who's going to talk about the Mercer Street Friends.
Okay, thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Madeline. It's a pleasure to be on this panel with Joyce and with Connie, two dear friends and terrific colleagues. I've been blessed to be part of Mercer Street Friends over the past 2 years. I will tell you, I'll give you the Mercer Street Friends, quick background, but this pandemic has really been dramatic, and I've certainly learned a lot. I think we've all felt like we've been drinking from a fire hose, through this process. And so I'll have some comments about that. But, for Mercer Street Friends, which many of you know the story, since I didn't realize we were probably the longest serving nonprofit, having been started in 1958, as was pointed out. Our founder was a Quaker by the name of Robert Applebaum, who determined that our current headquarters, which is at 151 Mercer Street in the Mill Hill section of Trenton, was no longer needed by the Quaker community at that time. And so he said, we're going to put this building to good Quakerly use and make it a community center. And we just served the neighborhood. And now that evolved to us becoming the food bank for Mercer County. And we also, our catchphrase is, we're all about food, family, and education. So we have family support programs for families in Trenton and Mercer County. And we are also heavily involved in education in the city of Trenton. So we are the backbone agency right now for the Community School Initiative in Trenton. And we have staff paid for by Mercer Street Friends and some, unfortunately, government funding with the strings attached, as Joyce was talking about. And those reports are really tough when you're, seeking those grants and you do receive the monies. We have staff that are in the schools. We are in 3 schools now: Gregory Elementary School, Rivera Community Middle School, and also Martin Luther King Elementary School. And we provide support services. We are a connector and a collaborator in that we bring in physical and mental health services and counseling to the schools. We provide academic supports. We provide, as Joyce does, adult basic education, for parents of the students. And our food bank is a source of tremendous support in not just the schools we work in directly through the community school model, but all the schools. in Trenton, and then many outside of Trenton. And we also have a preschool. And if you drive State Street at all, West State Street, our preschool is prominently featured on State Street, big sign on our building, and our preschool staff does an outstanding job with our youngest learners. So that's where Mercer Street Friends is these days, after evolving since 1958. I can't talk a lot about exactly how things were pre-pandemic. I started in February of 2020. And of course, the pandemic hit in March of 2020. And that was a big fire hose from which to drink from. And I just want to, give kudos to Joyce and to Connie for their help and guidance. I had known both. I certainly knew Task. I certainly knew HomeFront from my prior career at NJM, but I didn't. You can't fully appreciate how complex and stressful and intense the leadership of a nonprofit is until you're involved in the activity day to day. Connie always likes me to tell this story of my experience. Being a leader in the nonprofit space is much harder than being a leader in the corporate space. Listen, you have resources in the corporate world that you can't even hope to have in the nonprofit world. The leaders, and it's not just the executive directors and CEOs, it's the directors of programming, the top level individuals who are making sure that people are being served, to meet their respective mission. You have to be a jack of all trades. And you have to show tremendous grit and resiliency through the process. One thing I say to folks who ask about, who should we be supporting in the community? And, there's so many organizations, I'm not sure. And I say, look to the leadership and the staying power and the sustainability and the impact that folks have had, like Task, like HomeFront, like Arm in Arm, like the Rescue Mission. There are so many good, strong nonprofit organizations. And we would like that to eventually get to the promised land where we're not needed as much as we are now. But that's not 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. We are needed in this community. We are economic engines in many respects through our service to those who are clients, as well as being substantial employers. So we are a big part of all that encompasses the city of Trenton and the county of Mercer. And when it came to the pandemic, I know from my perspective and the Mercer Street Friends perspective, there was tremendous uncertainty in that March, April timeframe. And we knew the need for food was significantly increased, like overnight. I mean, so many jobs were just shut down. And think of the community in Trenton, those who are undocumented, whose jobs just went away, and they didn't have hope for unemployment benefits right away. And those who could get unemployment benefits still. How long did it take them to get unemployment benefits? People needed to feed their families. And that's where Task came through. That's where HomeFront came through. And for us at Mercer Street, we looked at a situation where we needed to step up to the plate. Now we were comforted by the fact that the philanthropic community, as Joyce alluded to, I mean, the support was so tremendous. And so that took away some of the stress and trauma of how are we going to fund our programs. We knew once the philanthropy of this region was shown and money was flowing, that we could develop the programs to support the community. So for instance, we have a program in the schools that we partnered with Task on, and it's called Send Hunger Packing. And it provides individual meals to students for Saturday and Sunday for those students who qualify for free and reduced breakfast and lunch. Well, the school shut down. We can't deploy those individual meals, and Task can't deploy those individual meals because they helped support that programming for us when we couldn't support all the schools we wanted to support. And so that goes away, but the need for food in those families, just dramatically increased, but they're not coming to school. So what do we do? So one particular program that we created directly in response to the school shutting down, it was our food bank director, Butter Allen, who engineered all this. We determined right away that not only do those students need food for the weekend, but the whole family needs food for the weekend. So we converted the Send Hunger Packing bags, which provided for 4 meals for one student, breakfast and lunch for Saturday and Sunday. We created a community food bag that was filled with shelf-stable food, but designed to provide 16 meals for the family. So we have deployed tens of thousands of community food bags in the community since March of 2020. Well over 1 million meals when you consider, the pounds of food and 16 meals per bag. Since that time, we continue that community food bag program to this day. Produce about 1,000 food bags a week for direct deployment into the community, as well as we have expanded our Send Hunger Packing program. Now that fortunately the students are back at school, thank goodness, they need to be in school. We are providing those, we call it SHUP. Those SHUP bags, about 1,500 SHUP bags are deployed every week for students in Trenton and throughout Mercer County. So, those are just 2 particular programs impacted by the pandemic that have grown stronger because of the support of the community. And I do want to give a shout out to our community foundations and private foundations, like Princeton Area Community Foundation, for instance, provided a COVID relief fund right away within 2 months of the beginning of the pandemic. And all of us, I think, benefited, HomeFront, Task, ourselves, and many others from that fund. And it gave us particular confidence, as I mentioned earlier, that if we were going to create additional programs to meet the needs of the community, our funding would be there. And then we've benefited at the food bank from federal funding as well. We have received millions of dollars over the past 2 years to support the food bank, because as the food bank for Mercer County, we're the wholesaler. We bring in shelf-stable food, fresh produce, frozen meats, and we store it only for a short period of time and deploy it out to more than 100 different, food pantry type partners, including Task and HomeFront. And they deploy, directly into the community as per their model. But we had a 15,000 square foot food bank warehouse pre-pandemic, and it wasn't enough space for us then. Then the need increases 50% because of the pandemic. We needed more space. Well, right next to our food bank warehouse, which is located in Ewing, New Jersey, is NJM's, was space that NJM was using, my old company. I didn't even know it at the time. Once we realized that, I called my colleagues at NJM up and I said, I need more space. We have to bring more food in to our warehouse so that we can deploy it in the community. And right away, NJM cleared some space in their warehouse for us. Months later, we determined that we needed that space permanently, and they elected to let us take over that lease. So we have now 25,000 square feet with NJM's additional 10,000. So we're a fully operational 25,000 square foot warehouse right now, poised for the future, because donated food has not been as strong as it was pre-pandemic. We've had to purchase a lot more food than is typical. We've been able to do that with the private and government funding, and we have the space to store it again temporarily until it is deployed out in the community. So, we are particularly blessed to have supporters like those of you on this call, the Pennington Presbyterian Church, so many others, and it's a real pleasure for me to be part of this community and to be a colleague with Joyce and with Connie. And I will say this, I mean, my observation, I know Joyce and Connie are very collaborative in how they approach their work, and they have to be in order to meet their mission. But I think one favorable aspect of the pandemic is that it brought the nonprofit community even closer together and really caused us to be more and more collaborative. We have helped each other out over the past 2 years, and I think that's going to serve us well over the long run. And of course, we've been blessed by having tremendous leadership for many years in this nonprofit sector. And I look forward to working with everybody for several years ahead. And again, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak here today.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie. I'll turn this over to Connie. Just unmute yourself, Connie. There you go.
That would be helpful. How exciting to be talking with this group who was there at the beginning of HomeFront. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But first of all, I am could not be more honored to be on a panel with Bernie and Joyce. We need Mary Gay Abbott Young here, and then it would kind of be complete. It's sort of the cornerstone agencies in Mercer County that take care of the folks who have the least, those that are the least among us. Each and every day, I am grateful for the work that Joyce and her crew at TASK do, both directly to help HomeFront and to help people that we really care about. And we could not do our work without the work of Mercer Street Friends. It's only become a more wonderful agency under Bernie's leadership over the last couple of years. So in a minute, I'll do as I was asked in terms of telling HomeFront's history, pandemic, and future. But because I know you can only listen to so much, I'm going to ask that if you remember nothing else about what I say, that you remember these two facts. One, that if you're going to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Mercer County and you're making minimum wage and you have 2 kids and you need 2 bedrooms, you are going to have to work 135 hours a week in order to afford that 2-bedroom apartment. Number 2, I want everybody here to know that the average age of a homeless person in Mercer County is 6 years old. Across the country, it's 7. The age when you are most likely to become homeless Bet you have some guesses, you know, I'm sure you're coming up with a picture of the guy who drinks too much and has been hurt by drugs. And, you know, the age when you are most likely to be homeless is in infancy from 0 to 1. It's across this country, and that's also in Mercer County. And those two things still horrify me. Now I'll go ahead and do as I was asked, and tell you a little bit about where HomeFront's been. But some of you, I think, know about HomeFront's beginnings, because your wonderful congregation was with us when a group of ragtag volunteers 30-something years ago decided that the horrible conditions along the Route 1 corridor for families that were warehoused in those godforsaken motels could not continue. Your congregation, people from your congregation came with us and delivered meals. At one point, we were delivering over 300,000 meals a year to people in our community who were living in motel rooms where there were no cooking facilities, where there was no way to keep a baby bottle cold. And these homeless families in those motels, on one side, there would be a mom with 2 or 3 kids. Next to her would be a prostitute who was working the room. And then after the prostitute left, some drug dealers would come in. Some of these hotels still exist in Mercer County. Just drive up the Route 1 corridor. You know what motels they are, guys. Thank God that the Sleepy Hollow Motel was flooded out. Maybe no more horror stories there. Over the course of these years, we have had 2 dead babies at the Sleepy Hollow Motel that didn't need to die in our community. But I'm sort of focusing on the motels a little bit more than I would normally do. In 2008, HomeFront celebrated the fact that there were no more homeless children living in those horrible places. And guess what? After the pandemic hit, after conditions got so bad in our community, again, so awful in terms of housing, the hotels are once again filled with homeless children, and HomeFront is back at the motels serving meals and providing programs. HomeFront is a complicated place because we're not just putting Band-Aids on people. We are trying real hard to have them develop into a life of possibilities. It's easiest to understand HomeFront, we've discovered, probably talking about our 4 core beliefs, because we are a complicated place. But so let me talk about our 4 core beliefs. 1, we believe that families deserve safe, secure housing. And to that end, last year we provided 290 families were sheltered with dignity at our family campus and in our Fresh Start program. Some of you have seen our big pink building near the airport. It's a decommissioned military base that now houses a whole array of programs that provide safe, dignified shelter, number 1, but also all the supports that you would need in order to claw your way out of poverty. Around the community now, HomeFront had our sister agency, Homes by TLC. We built 148 units of permanent, affordable, service-enriched housing. Those units you will not see around the community. We make very sure that they do not stand out, that they look just like the other houses in the community. And we are in most of the communities in Mercer County now with our housing. We have very concrete plans over the next 2 years to develop 73 more units of affordable housing. Those housing services, those permanent housing, permanent housing doesn't work real well for very, very low income people, and that's who we choose to serve unless there's immediate access to social services. So when you sign a lease with HomeFront or with Homes by TLC, you also immediately get a case manager, somebody who's going to be there for you and your family, somebody who's going to be there when the car breaks down and you can't get it to work anymore, somebody who's going to be there with you when your kid is diagnosed with autism and get you into the programs that you need. I think our shelter programs are pretty damn good. In fact, people say that they're a model for around the country. But as good as our shelters programs are, whatever we can do to help people avoid the trauma of homelessness, we do. And last year we gave funding out for security deposits and first month's rents to 720 families. Homelessness prevention is going to, in the next little while, be an even bigger issue. So core belief number 1 is everybody deserves housing. Core belief number 2, we believe that with the right tools, education, life skills, and career training, all families can succeed. Last year, even in the middle of the pandemic, we helped 73 long-term unemployed clients. We placed them in jobs and then provided supports to keep them in jobs. Getting jobs right now is not hard. Keeping them is, and it is that long-term support that's going to make sure that people are successful. We have, at our campus, we had established a health clinic because, my God, poor people get such poor medical care, and our kids' needs weren't being met. They received medical care in emergency rooms, not with pediatricians. We worked real hard to fix that. And gosh, I don't have the number of how many visits were made to our even bigger than I thought. 2,310 visits were made to receive services at our wellness center. That would include sick visits, mental health services, eye screenings, domestic violence supports, COVID-19 tests, and vaccinations. A lot of well-paid baby visits and learning disability screenings. One of the things that probably many of you know about us is that we take in your stuff. If you've got stuff that's in good shape, we want it. We want your used couches and beds and most of all bureaus, because we believe that families need basic necessities to live a life of dignity. So last year we didn't furnish very many houses. I think there were less than 100, just because donations dried up. People didn't want strangers in their house picking up stuff, but we're revamping that program. We have a free store where people can come and shop. They can take what they need. So if you have clothing, particularly large size clothing, please ask your friends who are successfully dieting, your friends who are very large, to give us their used clothing. Our free store is a fun place to go. I know that sounds weird, but our volunteers love being at our free store and sorting stuff so that we can take gently donated things and make it and set them up and make it look like a real store. It looks like a fairly nice, fancy, happy store. It'd be a great place for volunteering. One of the things that we have started a couple of years ago is a diaper bank. We knew that our clients became very obvious that diapers were a huge problem for our clients. We saw way too many babies with horrific diaper rash because moms couldn't change the diapers when they needed to be changed, but changed them when they had them. I recognize my privilege that when my grandbabies come to visit, I can go to Costco's and buy a great big thing of diapers, very cheap. But if you're buying diapers and you're living in the inner city, you go to a bodega and they charge $1 a diaper. So we have a very large diaper bank. Last year we gave out, I don't know how many we gave out, but I know we raised over 1 million diapers. And HomeFront partners with a number of other agencies so that they can give out diapers as well. We also have quite a large food pantry. God bless you, Bernie Flynn and Mercer Street Friends, for providing so much of the food that we give out in that food pantry. And the fourth one the fourth core belief that I'd like you to understand is that we believe that children nurtured by love and support will grow on a path to realizing life's possibilities. We started because of the children, and they are at our very core. We, of course, during the pandemic, had to change a lot of what we did. We took less kids. We cut down. So we at our summer camp, we only took the kids who were in most need, who were in the worst shape. It was quite a summer camp to try and run. We our weekly programs, we have a 6-day-a-week program. We were serving usually about 60 kids a night. We cut it down to 20. But our numbers are going back up again, and that's a very, very exciting thing. Let me tell you a story about the children just for a minute, and then I'll stop talking. Not so long ago, and I'm telling this story because this young lady just wrote me a letter that I received today, but not so very long ago, my husband had emergency, very serious heart surgery. It was totally unanticipated. We went in, and the doctor at 6 o'clock that night said, "Your husband needs immediate surgery." My team has done 3 very difficult operations already today. There's nobody else here who can do this surgery. We think we have him stable, but I've told my team if anything changes, that nobody's to have a beer tonight because we might have to come in the middle of the night. If he stays stable, we'll do surgery at 6 in the morning, and you can come in and see him at 5:30. It's COVID, get out of here. So sent me home. You can imagine what kind of night it was. I arrived back at this hospital at 5:30, which is not in Mercer County. We ended up across the river at a place I didn't know at all. And the security guard wouldn't let me in because nobody had told him. Nobody had told him that I was allowed in to see my husband before he's going to have this very scary surgery, very life-threatening surgery. As I'm fighting with this security guard, this young woman comes up dressed in hospital garb, puts her arm around me and says to the security guard, Miss Connie and HomeFront, they raised me. You know, she's like a mom to me. I'm going to take her where she needs to go. So as I was walking upstairs with Amber, who was a little girl I first met in the Trent Motel when she was 3 years old. When she was 4 years old, I had to tell her that her mother had died. And she stayed part of the HomeFront family along with her 2 siblings because her dad, who worked very hard, was a very serious addict. So they stayed involved all the way through high school with all of our programming. Well, Amber, as she's walking me up to see my husband, tells me that she doesn't usually work at the hospital. Usually she works as a at a place that sending out people for hospice care, that she runs that program, but she's just bought her first new home and she needs a little bit of extra money, so she's working at the hospital. What goes around, you know, comes around. And Amber is just one of the very many children that HomeFront has had the privilege of helping them change their lives and become real contributing members of society. And that's why we do what we do. So.
Well, thank you, Connie. If I'm going to open the floor for questions. So if you have a question, just kind of unmute yourself. But before we do, I have to say that in Hopewell Borough, HomeFront has a new shop.
Oh,
And it's, I was over there a week ago with a friend of mine, and I have to say it's wonderful. And I'm just giving you a plug for that. If you have donations, and it's very nice. It's very nice things. It's well worth the visit or the donation. Does anyone have a
Thank you.
question of any of the CEOs here? I love saying that. CEOs. No? Well, I'll start with a question. How do you all cope with what you do and what you see and some of I know, Connie, you had a very happy ending to a story about Amber, but how do you deal with it every day? How do you keep yourself focused and, you know, with all of the you know, the poverty, the sadness, the needy surrounding you?
I mean, I don't mind answering first. You know, I think it takes a long time to do it. You know, there's certainly some days that are just more frustrating than others, but, you know, one of the things that I feel as a leader, you know, I need to also help staff to cope with that. And, you know, one of the things I think that's really critical is that, you know, we have like Connie's story about Amber, a great success story. And so then people begin to weigh everything that they mark it up against that, which really, you know, we can impact people's lives in short periods of time. And, you know, I have two stories that I'm thinking of where the case manager was devastated by these two patrons' death, where we had to go back and say, but yes, the quality of that person's life changed for a significant amount of time because of what you did. You know, she'd helped this gentleman get his ID. Was in his 60s or 70s, took over a year. It was someone who had a home birth in North Carolina. Parents weren't literate, spelled his name different ways. She finally, though, for the last year or two, was able to get the ID, got the pension he deserved. He and his wife found a great place they could stay and call home. Unfortunately, he was very ill. But I said to her, it's sad, but you know what? You made an impact in his life at a certain time. And I think that that's one of the things, you know, the way I approach it is trying to look at the difference you made. And then the other part of it is trying to go, you know, on a higher level of advocacy. You know, here's what I can do for an individual. And I think I've seen staff feel empowered when we've brought them into, like, you know, okay, like this ID thing, you don't just have to sit here and moan to me. We're going to work on this, you know, like sort of empowered to make a difference. So, you know, for me, those are two ways that I have developed coping, and I share them, and particularly with staff, to let them know that, whenever you, are interacting with somebody, you're impacting their lives, nor in a positive manner, because we're providing opportunity. That's it for me.
Yeah, I'll say on the seesaw, it really ultimately balances way in favor of the inspiration that comes from those you work with,
Yeah.
those that you're working for, stories like Amber.
Mhm.
I will tell you, for me, I'm impatient by nature. I do not like to deal with the bureaucracy. But these barriers to us doing our jobs and helping people, overcoming them is why we're in the positions we're in. We've had success overcoming these barriers. It's particularly frustrating for me, coming from the corporate field and seeing these regulatory bureaucratic barriers when you're trying to help people. I get it when it's the insurance business. I don't get it so much in the nonprofit space. And I'll tell you, for me in particular, I need periodically to get to the preschool to see the kids, or to get into the community school and to see the kids there. When I was at NJM and working with Connie, I would want to see her kids. That's always a help, because they're the innocents. They're the reason that you want to make sure that they have equal access, same opportunities, and so for me, that's where you get the boost, and that seesaw tilts way up into the positive area.
I've got to second what Bernie said. The client stuff, by and large, gives me strength. Sometimes gives me tears. The community caring that we have in this community, my God, that gives me such strength. Our community is amazing and supportive and pretty wonderful. When you have a little kid bring in a jar full of pennies, nickels, and dimes that he has saved, that he wants to donate, how does that not make you feel good? The stuff that wears at my soul is the craziness of the bureaucratic system. God bless Joyce for taking on the issue of IDs in our community and across the state. The issue that makes me completely nuts is the shelters are filled with people with huge mental health issues. Lots of government resources are spent on providing mental health services, but because of a systems glitch, they can't be provided directly in the shelters. And our clients just don't go out for services. As Mary Gay says, services delayed or services denied in our population. Though that's the thing that costs me so much.
Well, what can our community do to help? I know they're, like you said, they're generous with donations and things like that, but is there something beyond? Do you need more volunteers? Is there a letter writing campaign we should start? Is there something that we can do? I mean, we have a lot of senior citizens in this in our church, and they can't always get out. And some of them are on fixed income, so they can't always be as generous as someone who's maybe working and so on. And so what can we do to help?
I'll jump in there. We talked about food a lot. HomeFront's about to expand our offices, our major offices, and we're going to be setting up a choice food pantry where people come and choose their own food, as opposed to us just choosing what they're going to get. That's going to take more volunteers. We'd love some folks to come and help with that new initiative. Things that people can do. One of the hardest things for us to get is to get dental care for our clients. So if anybody in your congregation is a dentist, is married to a dentist, or goes to a dentist, if they would ask their dentist to volunteer to take on one family for free a year, just one family.
Mm.
You can't get a job if you're missing your 2 front teeth.
Yeah.
End of story. That would make a huge difference. Another thing that I will just throw in is anytime anybody gives us a car in good working order, we change a life. In this community, without transportation and with 2 little kids who go to do 2 different places for daycare and for school, and if you have a job, it's just about impossible to manage. So a car in good working order, it can look really ugly. Has to be able to pass inspection, but changes a life. So getting the word out about our need for cars would be wonderful.
And I can say that for the first time, we're suffering with not enough volunteers in our food bank warehouse to pack the meal bags that I spoke about, the Send Hunger packing weekend bags for the students, as well as the community food bags for families and adults. It's just that with the COVID surge over the holidays, got everybody a little concerned. And so, we need to pick it up with regard to the number of volunteers who are coming through our door. It is, having pack bags myself, it's not easy work. It's pretty physical. You have to be able to lift the cans and the heavier food and into the bags, and about a 3-hour stint morning or afternoon. But we'd be very appreciative of any volunteers individually or groups, to come in, because we've needed them over the past month plus.
Is there an age limit in terms of when
No age
can,
limit on the
young?
high end.
Like
no.
with teenagers or above, or
we have teens come in and help.
Okay.
Different high schools support us at different times.
And address that you talked about folks who have difficulty getting out or don't have a lot of funding. And 2 things came to mind. One was, one of the reasons we totally appreciate, getting donated food and all of that. But if you only have a little bit to spend on buying that food, it can probably, those couple dollars can probably go a little further with us, only because we have greater buying power. So your small amount is worth more than you think when it's donated directly. Not trying to take away from food drives or anything, but that when you said that, that hit me. And the other thing, you mentioned letter writing, which, there sometimes are issues like this ID issue, which, by the way, happens to involve DMV, which happens to be a pain in the what for just about everybody in the state right now, because they're doing things all differently. So I might be back at you for a letter writing campaign about DMV and the ID process. I'm just sitting here thinking of like all of the wonderful, churches like you that support us and having all these, here's the voice of God on the DMV. I don't know. It's Friday afternoon. I get a little silly, but those things are really important. That's kind of like, again, like I talked about, upper level of advocacy. And I had worked for Catholic Charities, obviously, you said that. And one of the great things that they have there that I use when I speak to basically, faith-based groups, whatever, is the two feet of love in action. One's the foot of charity and one's the foot of justice, so that your foot of charity is coming in and volunteer. Your foot of justice is the speaking up or the writing about the cause. And it just kind of, and it's hard sometimes for people to shift, but to sign on to a letter or write a letter about a basic needs issue, that could be something, and, you know, definitely that helps.
Well, I understand bureaucracy. I worked for the state for 28 years, so I know what you could be up against. Does anyone else have a question? No, we're good. Oh, well, can I ask all three of you to send me a contact person and what you need, and I will distribute it to our congregation and to several of the local newsletters and things that our church participates in, and the senior citizen have a newsletter and things. It could be helpful. So you all have my email, so you can just email all that information to me, and I'll distribute it. And want to thank you so much for your presentation. We'll send you a thank you note from us, the older adult ministry team, and a donation from us. So we appreciate all the work you do. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us today. Thank you.
You're
All right, have a
welcome.
good weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.